Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with the relevant and reliable poet, Russ Haddad. Also known as A.A. Winston, he has had a full range of life experiences, starting with the death of his father when he was 12. When not writing poetry, he is the business development manager for the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild. His professional background ranges from marketing operations through a variety of positions in radio, journalism, tourism, economic development, and a series of public service positions. But he always had a love for writing dating back to high school. He turned towards poetry accidentally, dipping his toes into the game during high school. Poetry became his form of coping through life's ups and downs, reinvigorating that love during the COVID pandemic. We get into all of this and more. Enjoy.
Thank you for doing this. I appreciate you having me on. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's great to meet you. And I want to begin our conversation with what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years or so. How did you make it through the pandemic, and how did it change you?
Well, it was kind of interesting. So I was working in higher education back when the pandemic started, and actually I was living separate from my wife because we had a communal marriage. I was in one part of North Carolina. She was in another part. She was in the Durham, Chapel Hill area, and I was in Elizabeth City, which is on the coast of North Carolina. And with COVID, there came job change. I was laid off from my position at the university that I was working at. And my wife and I thought for 10 years we've been going back and forth like this, that maybe it's a good time to consolidate and, bring houses together, and live under one roof for a change. So, a couple of big changes, one, I transitioned from a job and got laid off from that, which honestly, in the end, probably was a very positive thing. But, it goes with, nobody ever wants to lose a job. But then it helped force me, my wife, to maybe rethink and reorient kind of how we do things. So I sold my house in Elizabeth City, moved in here in the center of North Carolina. And then, it opened my eyes, too, to what do I really want to do? Gave me a chance to stop and think, what do I really want to do with my life? What kind of a career do I want to have? And maybe what other passions are out there for me that I want to start doing? And really what kicked in was stuff that I've been doing for 40 years. And that's where the poetry and the book growth came in. Was I looked back, I was looking through files, and as I was moving and everything, and I realized I had all these writings and all this work that had been sitting there since I was a teenager. And, intermittently I would go back in and write, have a little surge of writing and everything like that. But it really it spanned everything from my teenage years and my reactions to my father's death when I was 12 through my early, college years, early adulthood, starting a professional career and a family, going through a divorce, custody sort of battle, and then kind of coming out on the other side, getting married again and starting a different type of life and just kind of really looking at myself in a different way, but also looking at life in a different way. And almost in a sort of way, kind of through these writings, after I started looking at them and say, hey, let's do something with this. Because it really kind of, it allowed me to kind of reflect a little bit more and maybe reconnect with something I've been doing, but also just kind of work through all those experiences and emotions that I had gone through in life, but also made me realize I can be a better person and all that goes along with that. So, it's a long answer to that question, but it really was a turning point. It made me just kind of take a different look at how things were going.
No, I appreciate that expose. That gets us to where we're at now. So it's clear that you're a poet now, but if you were to be put in front of a bunch of third grade students at Career Day right now, and one of them asked you, hey, what do you do for a living? How would you answer them?
So my day job is doing business development for the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild. So that's the trade association for the craft beer industry here in North Carolina. So I guess I'm not sure how I could say that to third graders. But I mean, I basically connect people to small businesses to growing part of the economy that, that actually, I can't say that to third graders because that's even more complicated. That's a great question. But I mean, I guess I schlock beer. I drink beer for a living. I don't know, but I don't know if that would go over well either. But
no, they would. They would aspire to that probably.
Yeah, no kidding. That's true. That's actually true. I guess I could fit, third graders to eighth graders to seniors in high school, right? I guess I could hit any crowd with that. And maybe you just turn me on to a new way of kind of talking to people. Totally simplify it, and get down to it. But yeah, I guess that's the way to. I guess that would be the approach.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Really kind of funny that back in second and third grade, I had said I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. And lo and behold, out of college, I did that. I worked for newspapers in Massachusetts here in North Carolina for about 4 or 5 years total over time. And it was a great experience because I was a really shy, bashful kid. I'm still kind of an introvert as far as not liking big crowds and all this kind of stuff. But really being a reporter really kind of helped me come out of my shell, but also helped me to learn how to write and how to talk to people and relate to people and ask questions and really kind of get involved with the community aspect because they're all small local newspapers that I worked for, community newspapers, and I covered everything from local politics to economic development to education, all those sorts of areas. And you really do meet a lot of different people being a journalist. But that was kind of, that was a dream. And I was able to do that. And, I never made it to the New York Times, which is fine at this point. But I was able to kind of realize that. But it also, I didn't, at the time, it was like, okay, it's just a job. But I didn't realize that it had kind of come to a certain degree at a young age, come full circle, that I was able to do what I had set out to do. But even since then, it carried me through any other, I went into tourism and economic development and all those sorts of aspects, working on the public service side, local, state, and federal levels. And even now with my current job at the Guild, I am meeting people, learning about people, finding out what makes them happy and what makes them want to do what they want to do. And I think that has helped me by far. That's the one area of whatever I've done in life has carried me through from a professional point of view, but also relating to people on a personal level, being a good listener and talking to them and hearing what they have to say and putting myself in their shoes, in someone else's shoes has really been what I've gotten out of that. But yeah, that's what I wanted to be when I was a third grader was a journalist.
Dream realized. So let me ask you this: who's been a hero for you in your life?
Hero? Oh, geez. It was really kind of, I guess it still kind of sticks with that journalism area, and it may be, sort of cliche, but the Walter Cronkites of the past, and I have my sports heroes. It was, I guess, probably for me, I'm probably more of a hockey fan than anything, but people like Bobby Orr or people from the big bad Boston Bruins back in the day of the 70s and 80s and everything like that. So I mean, but also, to a certain degree, on a more personal note, my mother was a hero to me. My father passed away when I was 12. I am the youngest of four children, and she was able to kind of keep it going, from that point on. And she worked hard, and she showed me how to work hard and how to be, really, dedicated to family and really, maybe to a certain degree, put the needs of others, before mine. And she really showed me what sacrifice could be like. But also my biggest supporter over the years, and continues to be. So I think when all is said and done, I probably have to say my mother is probably my number one fan and number one supporter, and really my hero.
So it's funny you mentioned, journalism. You'll get a kick out of this. The Chiefs summer camp is at Missouri Western University, it's in St. Joseph, just north of Kansas City. And Walter Cronkite went there, and they have a Walter Cronkite School of Journalism there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's funny, and he was a Midwestern boy. So let's stay in that whole journalism. If you could put that journalism hat on and interview anybody on the planet, spend some time with them, pick their brain, write a story, put together a podcast on them, who would it be?
That is a fantastic question. Wow. Who? This may, and not to be overly political maybe, but I'd almost have to say Donald Trump, only because and then maybe I'll show a certain side of myself here and how I fall politically, but I am fascinated by what makes him tick. You know what? I take that back. I'd like to talk to his supporters. I'd like to know what makes them tick, what they're thinking. And almost I'd like to, on the other side, why can't we find middle ground? Because you know what? When you look back at 2016 and you look at Trump versus even, as an alternative, Bernie Sanders, they were both saying basically the same thing, basically running on the same platform. And so you had people on the left and people on the right basically saying the same thing and wanting the same thing. Both unhappy, both sides unhappy. So why now? Why can't we find middle ground now when we all kind of want the same thing? Because in the end, I think people in general just want the same thing. They want to, raise a family, have a good life, have a good job, be able to provide for their families, and just simply be happy. And hope that their children are better off than they are. I think everybody takes pride in that, and they want respect and dignity. And I think that's really what everybody keeps talking about. And I just feel like, how did we lose that? How we've lost sight of that? And I know there's a lot of media hype and all this kind of stuff that really coming out of journalism and looking at how the press is and what the news media has become is so disheartening, because there was a time when the news media was trying to solve problems, or at least put information out there so people can make up their own minds. And it feels like now it's just all about getting an opinion out there and pitting people against each other. And I don't know if that's constructive. And I know it's not constructive for democracy. So, and I may be bearing off on a different subject here, but yeah, I think it's the people who are in these different camps. What makes them tick, and why do they think a certain way when, the truth is somewhere in the middle, usually. So, yeah, and thanks for making me think, because I think that's it. No, I don't want to talk to Donald Trump. I want to talk to Joe Biden. I want to talk to the people who support them, or whoever it may be, and just kind of what they're all about.
Yep, that would be good, yeah. Because I always feel like this modern realm of podcasting is a therapeutic arena for people to see each other eye to eye and celebrate who we are. And I think most of us are, like you said, feeling the same ways about our lives, the way that we want to live it out. And I think, unfortunately, ironically, what's happened is that the political forces on both sides have put so many issues that are non-issues but become big issues that actually divide us, whether it's abortion or whether it's immigration. It's like there's all of these issues. And the irony is that if you historically, statistically look at even both of those, there's levels of legislation that have saved this country from diving further and further into peril. But it's also been a way for people to come into this country, because no one's naturally an American. There's all kinds of different blood that mixes in. So it's finding that middle ground, but these politicians use them as rallying cries and sound bites that genuinely divide us when we really aren't that divided. We're more unified. So anyway, that could be a whole other thing, but I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess it really does come down to people on the right and people on the left. We all just want respect and dignity, and they don't feel like they're getting that. So how do we solve that problem? But you're right, that is a whole different conversation.
Yep, for sure. So let me ask you this: who's your favorite poet? Who would be the one poet if you had to be put into a room and read for a while? Who would it be?
You know, I do like the you know, like Maya Angelou and people like that who just kind of seem to be in touch with the soul of a person. And I can't write like that, and I never would say I could write like that. But even, you know, geez, she would probably be top of my list. But, you know, some people along those lines, even the you know, every once in a while you got to look back at the classics of the, you know, the Byrons and the Shelleys and all those types of people. Yeah, Thomas Hardy, I mean, he's more of a writer, but you know, his writing is always kind of, you know, stuck, you know, with me. I was influenced by my father-in-law, who passed away last year, to kind of get to know that a little bit more, that side of it. But yeah, I would have to say somebody along the lines of Maya Angelou, because I just she said something, I think, about people. She was in touch.
For sure. So as somebody that loves poetry, and, you know, I do myself, and I write, I do spoken words, and I'm in that ilk. It's always been timeless. Poetry, no matter, even if it hasn't been the most popular thing in the world, it's been a timeless thing that everyone grabs onto, and there's all these closeted poets that are out there that you don't know are poets. But in your estimation, what is the timelessness? What is the power, the poignancy of this art form that people love to get involved with, probably more than they love to read it, I would think?
And yeah, I think it's just the durability maybe of it, and the I hate to use the word simplicity, but it depending on the genre and depending on the style and everything like that. I mean, it can be very easy to access and to grasp. And I think to a large degree, I think it's fairly easy to kind of put yourself into the shoes of the writer, and depending on whatever the topic may be, I think you can really it helps you connect to not just yourself, but some other things beyond you, whether it be nature or be to another person or a relationship type or just a state of being. I just think it just conveys to various aspects of how people live and just do things and behave. That just makes it more, I keep coming back to relatable, but I think you can take whatever genre, because they become, and I know it's not music, but they do kind of become the written lyrics of a person's life, potentially. It always kind of, you can find something that kind of says that take a line out of a poem, and you can relate it back to what may be going on in your life, or where you want to go, what you aspire to be, and that can be on a societal level as well. You know, I mean, I think art in general has been a catalyst for a lot of things on a positive, just kind of way society progresses. So I think that's a big part of it, just being able to take writing and kind of bring it to what it may mean to you personally, is an important part of what poetry is. And I think it's a vehicle for really make people think, but also react, but also just, and you don't have to be outward about it. You can just kind of keep it to yourself and just kind of nod your head a little bit and say, yeah, that's what I'm feeling. And that's what I want to be, maybe, or that's how I want to behave. I think that's what poetry provides.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Man, you are coming at me with some great questions. The best advice. Ooh, let me think on that. Let me think. That's.
We can circle back. We can circle back around to that
because I think you're talking 55 years of being around. So go to the next question. Let me think on that because that really is. I want to give time for the question.
So, what's the first piece, whether it's a poem or any form of writing that you did, where you thought, "Wow, I've arrived. This is something that makes sense to me. This is something I want to do. People are moved by." What was that piece?
It's kind of funny that back in high school, it was, I was on the newspaper, the school newspaper, and I was, so shy that I had a hard time just approaching people just to do interviews and things like that. And then somehow it was suggested that I become the school poet, the newspaper poet. So, it started out like, I think it was like the Valentine's Day issue or something like that. But I just kind of put some words together. And the response was positive for the most part. And I know it was naive thoughts and naive writings maybe and idealistic, but, young teenage love sort of stuff. That's when I kind of, that acceptance that people, one, would read it and think positively about it. And that just became, that really is what started the whole thing. Then for a while I wrote, through high school, the rest of high school into college. And I was able to kind of infuse that with my music, what I liked musically. And that was, different lyrics from different artists and different titles and genres and everything like that. But just pulling those lyrics and kind of putting a twist on them and putting them together as poetry. And then from there, just kind of mushroomed. And I think that seeing that appreciation that when people read it, that it triggered something in a positive way in people. And that's what kept me going. And over time, I kind of lost it a little bit. Life gets in the way sometimes, and you kind of lose track of what you're doing. But I think I always returned back to it. I've always leaned on it to really kind of push me through. And even now, things that inspire me, just kind of what's going on around me. What am I seeing, both personal level or societally? That's what motivates me now to write. So yeah, I think that was just kind of seeing people, the reaction by people to my writing. And I'm not saying that I have these masterpieces, but it's just, but I'm glad on some level people enjoy them.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, clients, colleagues, readers. But you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Hey, honestly, I think I'm just a regular person who's gone through things in life, and I've been able to persevere. Some of it is, I know through my divorce, it was not a pretty time, and I did not react well. My ex-wife did not react well. Takes two sort of a thing, but I think I've grown, through that, and that's kind of the point of everything, is that you go through things in life and you kind of learn, and as long as you learn in a positive way and you react in a positive way, you can contribute to society in any way you'd want to. But I think that's the big thing, is that I'm no different from a lot of people. Go back to the previous part of the conversation. I want those same things I think everybody else wants. But that's what I hope from people get from my poetry, is that that's relevant to their lives, and there's a bit of rediscovery on my part, and looking back on everything that I've written up until this time, and now it becomes a jumping off point to what's the next part of my life as I grow older. What kind of impact can I have in general, and that's really, I just hope people see that. It's pretty raw. My poetry's pretty raw, and it's kind of, it's not always the most crisp style of writing. But I just hope people to see if I can do it, they can do it. And if I've lived through these things, they can live through these things and come out feeling good about life and just moving forward.
Right on, Russ. Hey, if anyone wants to get involved with your writing, learn more about you, reach out, what's the best way to do that?
Best thing is go to my website, russhaddad.com, RUSSHADDAD.com, and they can contact, go through on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com, and you can order the book. And I do have a new book that just came out recently called Pieces of Mind, which really is kind of my take on what's going on in society. So I do get a little bit opinionated and political to a certain degree on that, but it's really about also tributes to people who have had influence on me in my life, which I want to go back to your question, honestly, that about best advice. And I think this kind of came with my father-in-law as well, that when we were getting married, he actually did the service. He was a pastor, a minister, and he did the service. And his advice was, you're an ark. You and your wife are an ark. You always have to lean against each other to get through life, because life is not always going to be good and positive. You're going to have tough times. But as long as you rely on each other and support each other, you're going to come out of it okay. And I think I can extrapolate that out into life in general. Not everything is always going to work out the way you want it to work out. And, you always have to have, whether it's a spouse, family member, or friends, or whoever it may be, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to look for support, and also on the other side, be supportive of other people, because I think that's what we're all about as a people.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best advice I've gotten.
Right on.
And I showed that in my books a little bit.
Cool. Russ, this has been great, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. It's been fascinating. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you very much for everything. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.